Welcome, everyone. This is the Academy of Men podcast. This is actually episode number 1. My name is Joel Ruiz. My co-host, Edgar Rios. We are excited to be here together and actually start this project together. This is something that has definitely been in our minds for a while. And we're looking to see where we can potentially take this long term.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think both of us, this is a long time coming.
This is a long time coming, for sure.
Yeah. And what sparked you to
So
ask me to do this with you?
So a while ago, I began a podcast, and I think I fell off. I definitely fell off. I don't think I fell off. I fell off. And I realized that it had a huge impact. Had I continued it, maybe I would have been in a different place currently in my life. And then I realized that I wanted to start again, but I didn't want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it with a partner to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Because you're the one that was like, hey, bro, are we recording on Sunday? I was like, yeah, let's do it. Hold me accountable, and B, actually just bounce ideas off and actually have like a long form conversation together.
Yeah, well, it's an honor. For real, it's an honor, bro.
Yeah.
For those of you who might just be listening, I just dapped him up.
Yeah.
But when he asked me to do this, I remember telling him that, damn, I wish we started this sooner, because there's so much this man has helped me process emotionally, psychologically, he's helped me so much in my life. And there were so many conversations we've had in the past,
for sure,
that haven't been recorded.
No.
That really could have helped someone if they would have heard us speak about it.
Yeah. Not only that, but so the idea of Academy of Men, right? We were just bouncing off ideas in regards to what would we call this podcast, why Academy of Men. And it's just because we just wanted to be, ironically, inclusive to everyone, and just have the open mindset and open concept of just having various conversations, not necessarily limited to any one or two topics, and one of the biggest things that really came out of it was for us to just have, again, just free conversations. Like what does this mean? What does it entail for our audience? Because now we're gonna have an audience. How can we help them? Right? It's not just us having to sit down and just having a conversation. It's like, hey, what can we bring to that? How can we be of value? To the general population. Yeah.
And I think part of the many things you and I have in common is that we are kind of like always pushing to bring value to conversation and just make things a little bit more worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that Academy of Man is I thought it was spot on.
So let's touch on that real quickly.
Yeah. Like man as in mankind.
Yeah. MAN, not MEN.
There's no my immediate thought when I said those words together was there's no rule book to life.
Mm-hmm.
And just that, actually. There's no rule book to life. And I'm not saying that's what this is going to be, because that's way too much pressure to put on a human being. But I think that
we could potentially create the guidebook.
Or, people. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that at that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Again, this is just a project that we're starting. This is episode 1. And we're looking, we already have a couple of episodes that we are planning to launch. By the time that you guys are seeing this has already been recorded, and we have a few episodes already recorded, which we will be posting lives. You guys can follow us on all of our social medias. Hopefully we have social medias created by then.
They will be. They'll be linked down below.
Yeah.
So make sure you check those out.
And shout out to our sponsor, I was going to say Spotify. Philosophy,
Yes, sir.
which is my men's brand, clothing brand. And that's one of the things that, you know, we try to create various things. The mere fact that we're sitting down here and having a conversation is a form of creation, right? And I really thought about this even before we came here and we sat down. One of the things that I was thinking about is the mere fact that this is a timestamp.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
This is a literal timestamp in space and time that we are actually sitting down and actually having a conversation. Had these cameras and these microphones not have been here, this conversation would have just continued to fly on.
Yeah.
Throughout history. Like, nobody would have ever heard this conversation, right? And I think that overall, we as a society, as a species, right, live in the greatest time and era ever. And the mere fact that this is a timestamp is something that we're going to be fortunate enough to be able to look back on a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, and say, hey, look, this is something that you and I started a while ago.
100%. That's what I do with my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I love looking back at those videos.
Yeah.
And just seeing where I was. And then, I don't know if you realized, but at the end of every video, I had quote of the week. And each quote I chose is a very self-projecting quote, but there were messages to myself, or my messages to my future self.
Yes.
That I wanted to make sure that I remember throughout.
Yeah.
And my digestion process is a lot different now, but every single now and then I watch my old videos and I'm able to kind of like have this conversation with my old self and be like, oh shit, man.
Yeah, man, it's funny you say that. I remember one time when I was younger, I was in the 6th grade and I had written a letter to myself after I graduated high school. And one of the things that I remember from the letter was, it was 2 things. It was, number 1, don't go to jail.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And number 2, don't have a child.
Wow.
Crazy.
How ironic.
How ironic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, ironically, we can also project ourselves to the future and speak to our future selves. Everything that we do today will have an impact on our future self. Yeah. And this is why, you know, whatever it is that you start, whatever it is that you quit, whatever it is that you do overall, it does have a future impact on yourselves. And so I think this is why we're starting this. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And back to what you said earlier, that today is a stamp. Right?
Today is a stamp.
One thing that's very interesting, and I saved that conversation, or I saved mentioning it specifically for when we were recording, is that today marks 9 years, bro, since my suicide attempt.
No
back
way.
In 2015. Yeah, and what are the odds that normally I like to take this day out of the year, I take it to myself. So
January 14th.
Yep, 2015 is the day I tried to take my life. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and it was even more ironic is that my most recent relationship that ended, I met her on the day that I attempted to take my life. January 14th, 2021 is the first time I met her in person. Yeah, bro. So that day this specific day has been a very consistent timestamp for me. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, bro.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know what the world is telling me, or God or the universe is telling me, but it's telling me something, bro. Today's a special day, and Tamaki, we're here.
Yeah, listen, man. The mere fact that we're alive,
yeah,
overall, and the mere fact that we're here and just having this conversation overall is, I don't know. Overall, I think it's just a positive. Yeah. And I wanna. What is your vision with this, actually?
My vision, part of my vision is. Because there's so many routes that we can take.
Yeah, for sure.
With this, and so many different kind of bubbles that we can enter. My main goal is to kind of just share experiences, and because I think that you and I both do a pretty good job at reflecting. Mm-hmm. You're one of the most reflective people I know, and that is lackluster in a lot of people. Not everybody has the ability to look at themselves and look within, and through us sharing our experiences and how we digested or didn't digest.
Yeah, lack of.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of value to be drawn from that.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to kind of just like share
Yeah.
and be that open book
Yeah,
and
yeah,
help
yeah.
people digest and process this
I think
information.
overall, like for example, my vision with this is more of a philosophical,
Yeah.
existential kind of mentality,
Okay.
where it's like, hey, the various conversations are already being had,
Yeah, they are.
right? Pick a topic.
Yeah.
Somebody's already talking about it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how can we be just different? And how can we be different? Obviously by being ourselves,
Yeah.
but also like you mentioned, like just being reflective, seeing how being reflective can have either a hopefully a positive impact on somebody else's life. Like the mere fact that you mentioned that today was the day that you you attempted to take your life.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
You attempted to take your life.
I woke up very angry. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
January 14th was the day that you attempted to take your life, and January 15th you had a pretty bad day.
Yeah. It was rough.
You woke up the next day and you were like, "Oh, this did not go out.
What? I'm still
This
here.
did not go as planned."
Yeah.
But I mean, ironically, I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. I'm happy I'm here too.
You know, because we have it rough, bro. Like us men, we do have it rough overall. Ironically, us men, we attempt suicide at a higher level than women.
Yeah.
And by the majority of times, we are more successful in those attempts.
Yeah.
So you're the outlier.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I am.
You're the outlier. That's insane, man. Yeah, that's pretty
I didn't
insane.
mean to drop that on you right away.
No, it's completely fine. I mean, overall, I think we eventually. I mean, I've had my share of thoughts, you know, but by the grace and mercy of God, I've never actually have gone through and actually performed the actual action, for various reasons, various things that have actually allowed myself to pull myself out of those holes, right? Because they're
very easy to fall into,
man,
especially when you're carrying a lot, right?
Not only is it easy to fall into, it's so hard to get out of.
Yeah.
Right? Because let me ask you something. Is it and we apologize that, you know, we're going down this conversation, but we just whatever.
We're here.
Is it easier to take your own life, or is it harder to continue on with life?
Nobody has ever asked me that before. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I promise. I'm good. But looking back at it now, I think it was a lot more difficult to choose to end my life than it was for me to continue living.
That's interesting.
In the moment, because man, you gotta think about it. Like everything becomes pretty and beautiful right before you decide to try and do that.
Yeah.
Every little thing, bro. You start thinking thoughts that you haven't thought of, or things that you didn't even remember that you remembered start to come up. And then most importantly, the people that you know you're never going to see again, that those thoughts come in like, wow, they're going to be talking about how I did this.
Yeah.
Or these people in school for me at the time are going to have these conversations and this
Yep.
and that and this. But everything just, I call them like popcorn thoughts. They just pop in out of nowhere. Boom, 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 boom. Like July 4th.
Yeah.
And like I said, everything becomes so beautiful right before you do it. And you gonna really have to like rip the Band-Aid off and just go for it. And for me, all those beautiful things that I knew I would miss out on weren't enough in the moment to kind of like make me want to
tilt
stay.
the balance.
Yeah, there was no no way out of the hole that I was in. At least for me at the time, there wasn't.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 17.
17.
Yeah, bro.
That's a tough age.
That is, it is a tough age. And for most 17-year-olds, you know, like not making the basketball team or I had to worry about a few different things. I come from a family who didn't make the best decisions in life, so finances was always a struggle. And watching the people I love struggle so much is kind of what pushed me to that. And I had a decent understanding that there was no like pill that these people can swallow that will instantly make them better.
Yeah.
The things that were hurting me was watching them hurt, and I knew that the only way for them to be okay was a very long process of things.
Yeah.
That were not going to happen right away, and we'll probably end up homeless before that can happen. We'll probably end up. There's so many other things that would have happened first. So I was just aware of that, and for me, I was not. At first, I was almost like emboldened by the bliss of not knowing the complexities of being an adult and what it took to raise a kid and a family and stuff like that. So I kind of navigated the world with this sense of bliss, like, okay, I'm gonna be a dancer one day, and then everybody's just gonna be good. And then senior year hit, and I started becoming a little bit more aware, and it was just small little things like, what is an eviction notice? What does that even mean? And it just all came crashing down from there. And like I said, there was nothing that can
tilt the balance
that out. It was just. Yeah, the only way out for me was, you know, just in my head at the time, I remember saying, like, you know, at least you'll have one less mouth to feed. We good?
All right, guys. We do apologize for the technical malfunction that you guys just heard. We are going to be putting in the audio from the cameras, but now we're back on the actual mic. Okay. So, my apologies, my brother.
No, don't be sorry, man. This is our first episode.
Literally. Together. So, I actually told him that the chances of this failing was, like, significantly high. I gave us a 98% chance of failing.
Really?
Yeah.
98?
98. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, this is probably not going to work on our first try.
Yeah. But what we're trying to do is not... I don't think it's a two-man job.
Yeah.
But if two men were going to be the ones to do it, I feel like it would have been us.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's turning out amazing.
Better than we expected.
Yeah, I think it's really good for not having somebody helping us with production.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if you guys can see this, Joel set all of this up. He said, well, he was late first, and then I was late to his lateness. And because we planned for 6, but... Yeah, it takes a whole crew to do something like this, and we're a two-man army right now. So, yeah. So where we left off in regards to the conversation was the fact that you came into a realization that, you know, in reality life was actually kind of tougher than we expected. Yeah.
Money, right?
Yeah.
Ironically, the fact that you mentioned money is my trigger.
Is it?
Is my trigger. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, but I think it was around this time, sometime in like February, January, something like that. Yeah. I was in Florida.
Yeah.
And I had an episode.
Yeah.
And I called you. And ironically, I was considering just either A, taking my own life, or B, committing myself to a hospital.
Yeah. Like,
I was hyperventilating, and I was just going through an entire episode. And I called you because I was like, if there's one person that knows how to deal with this issue, it's probably Edgar.
Yeah.
Right? And thank God you helped me out. And after that, you was like, yo, you should take therapy. And after that was when I actually figured out that money is actually my trigger.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because money is so interesting, right? A lot of people say money can't buy happiness. Sure. But you know what else can't buy happiness? a lack of money.
Mm.
And that to me is really important. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that you're probably more miserable with a lack of money than you are with an abundance of money.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
I mean, they're both, it's interesting that you said, because they're both issues, right? They're both problems. But you could have issues of abundance or issues of the lack thereof. And they're both pains, and they're both issues nonetheless. They can both keep you up at night.
For sure.
But it's just we don't struggle the same.
You mentioned something. You said, you're a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right? Not even like your frontal cortex is not even fully developed.
Yeah.
And you start to realize that, it takes X amount of money to pay the rent.
Yeah.
B, it takes X amount of money to feed me.
Yep.
Feed us.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes X amount of money to do so many other things. Right? So then the problem also comes in where you begin to realize that, okay, I only know how to make money one way. Right? Which is trade time for money.
Yeah.
Right? And for me to make $900 getting paid at $15 an hour, I need to work a hell of a lot of hours.
Yeah, you do.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you start thinking about it like that, you're like, wait a minute, I don't even have enough time in the week to
make that amount of money.
Like, it takes multiple weeks.
Yeah, and this is why people fall into selling drugs, a lot of fast money, and because they don't have, where else are they gonna go for it?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I could have easily turned down that, went down that path of selling. I might not look like it, but it's just easy. It was very easy for me to just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna sell this rock or move this herb around for people and make a quick 400 here, 500 there. But thankfully that wasn't me.
Yeah.
And those things didn't make themselves as accessible as they normally are within that time frame of me going through that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to acknowledge that money is a lot of people's demon, or like JBP likes to say, dragon, that they have to slay. But like I always like to say, through the lack of proper digestion of that knowledge is where I felt very hopeless. And even till this day, bro, I'm not gonna sit here and act like
that we made it.
Not a problem. For me,
for sure.
Money is a problem.
Money is a problem for me to this day.
And it's just I'm able to scale that dragon down to size a little bit and slay the smaller ones. And I think that's a big part where a lot of people are gonna be able to identify with the fact that money is a big. What is your advice, or not even your advice, or how have you managed that kind of dragon, having that issue of money thus far?
So I had to take multiple approaches, right? So when I was younger, and I thank God for my mom, right? Because I think my mom is a pivotal cornerstone for me. That I know that a lot of people are not fortunate enough to have that. Right? Where I was like, how you have an unfair advantage? In anything, like you're just tall as hell and you could probably dunk on me. That's an unfair advantage. My unfair advantage in life is actually my mom, right? Because my mom is the literal definition of a hustler, right? And growing up, she would say things to me like, money has already been made. You just got to go out and get it. Things like that, right? She would say things like, the poor only advance through debt.
Your mom said that to you?
My mom said that to me. And she would say it in Spanish. She would say things like, el pobre nada más avanza por líos, right? El dinero ya está hecho, nada más hay que ir a buscarlo. Things like that, And she really allowed me to change my perspective about money, because I think the biggest issue with to try to really slay this dragon is our perception of the dragon. Right? Like, how big is this dragon? Like, is it really that big? right? And for certain people, I mean, I remember when I was in college, there was a lady that I used to work with because I used to be a Spanish instructor in college, and she mentioned that she has so much college debt that she would never get out of it forever. Like she was just like, that's it. I have so much college debt that it doesn't matter what I do in my life, I will never be able to repay this amount of money. Mm-hmm. Now, thank God I'm not in that situation. But if I were,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Mind you, you can't file bankruptcy on college debt. P.S.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that?
No, I did not know that, bro.
You could file bankruptcy on anything.
Yeah, except college debt.
Except student loans.
They want their money.
They need their money.
Yeah.
And ironically, I mean, we don't want to touch on like politics or anything, but but Joe Biden has Joe Biden has forgiven a couple like $1 trillion in college debt because it's such a huge dragon for people.
Yeah.
There are people who literally cannot advance in their lives because of this. And I don't know, man. There's a lot of different ways to go around it.
Yeah.
But to me, it was really changing that perspective on it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, is the only way for me to make money trading time for money? No. Mm-hmm. Am I able to trade services for money? Yes.
For sure.
Let me figure out a service, right? You figured out a product.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm still struggling in figuring out a product. That's something that I want to achieve long term. But I figured out how to trade services for money.
Yeah. I
know how to trade time for money, right? And so because of that, I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to sit here and say that money is still not an issue in my life. But overall, I've been able to, like you mentioned, just cut it down into pieces.
Yeah. And
figure it out from there.
Yeah. For me, I've noticed what's been working for me is just acknowledging the fact that is never not going to be an issue. I know that might sound a little like, I don't know, maybe pessimistic or morbid, but I decided to just kind of like let go of that fret, just like, ya eso lo solté. It's like I gotta work or I have to sell something to finance this so that I can afford to think and do things. And this is a little bit off, but somebody asked me about like my productivity.
Okay.
And I told them, I have like 3 different stages. Sometimes when I get in my head, I either do too much, do too little, or sometimes I'm on just like in this autopilot phase. But I told them, I remember saying I've never been able to navigate the things that interest me without kind of like the chase for money.
Elaborate.
Now, so I love dancing, right? I remember dancing for high school for free. And then once I was able to start monetizing myself, it's like when I got signed to a talent agency and I started exchanging money for dance and for dances and just me in general, I realized that Coño, se me fue. You started doing your dancing for money. Yes.
Right? And I mean, to an extent, that's a change in your mentality, really.
Yeah. No, it is. Pero se me olvidó de lo que estábamos hablando antes.
Now we were talking about the slaying of the dragon.
Okay.
And how it becomes an issue for various people, and the fact that you said that you never been able to differentiate the fact something that you wanted to do with money.
Right. So I was saying I was never able to explore the things that bring me that creative fulfillment without being in like a desperate state of mind. I've never been able to navigate the things that bring out my creativity without having that as like a lighter or like a fuel to what I'm doing.
Is the action of creativity, how can I ask this?
Is it fueled strictly by monetary gain? For some people it is, and for some people it isn't. But I did notice that once I was able to so when all of that happened to me, I didn't like dancing anymore.
Okay.
I felt like a you pay me, I go, I dance, and I leave. It kind of like it took away a lot from dance for me. And I remember asking myself if this is really something I wanted to do, because I spent at least, bro, like 80 plus hours on a dance for a pageant. And I remember so I was hired to be the dance director for this Vietnamese beauty pageant, and it was a beautiful opportunity. I got to hire two of my amazing friends, and but I remember us staying up all night, and weeks before, staying up all night trying to think of movement for these girls who I don't know personally, and they might have two left feet, so I can't make it too complex, or I can't keep it too simple because it's got to be pretty anyway. So I remember being given like this stressful job, and I remember kind of like arguing with my close friends. These are people that I consider very close to home, and they're family to me. We were arguing over these things. Oh no, that might be too hard. Oh, that might be too simple. Like what are we doing? Do we know if is she even a righty? Like is it?
Yeah.
But I remember how money kind of like divided, or took me away or separated me from dance.
From that creative outlet.
Yeah, it was very disgusting.
My cousin, shout out to Jonathan, he would always tell me that the moment that he's paid to do a drawing, he loses the ability to do the drawing.
That's interesting.
I don't know why.
That's interesting. Do you think Joel would be any more or less creative if he had $1 billion in his bank account right now?
I would be more creative if I were to be paid to be creative.
Yeah. I think at first, if I had $1 billion, I think, because when you think about it, when we go through things or when life happens, we often get like stuck in these mindsets of when it happened, right? So I've got a lot of years of enjoyment to kind of like pay for. And does that make any sense?
No, elaborate.
So, coño, ¿cómo te lo explico? Therapist, right? What a therapist does is they listen.
Yep.
So when you go to therapy, that person is being paid to sit down and listen to sometimes 1 week worth of issues, or 10, 20 years worth of issues.
For sure.
So for me, money's been such a problem, and money's been such a demon for me, that I haven't been able to do a lot in my life. And I think that if you were to give me $1 billion right now, I would do every single thing I've always wanted to do.
Why?
Just to get it done, motherfucker. What do you mean?
What do you mean? I think you would
get it done, man.
I genuinely think that if I were to give you $1 billion right now, you would lose motivation.
You think so?
I think so. I think you would lose your drive. Because now money doesn't make money has no purpose.
And that's also what I meant in the beginning. Like the lack thereof money can be very
yeah, I mean, to me it's a drive.
Yeah.
Right? For example, I remember one time I was hired to do a spoken word for a New Year's event right here in Utica. And they said, "Hey, we'll pay you." And I was like, "You pay me
to speak?
To do a spoken word?"
Yeah.
Bro, say less.
That's nice of them.
You know what I'm saying? But like, for example, right now on my job, I'm being paid to be creative in regards of creating videos, right? And that to me allows me to just let go of the stress of money and actually focus on the ability of being creative, right? So, for example, if we were to do this, we're doing this podcast, right? And we know that, you know, we have sponsors, or that we have Patreon members that are supporting our work, right? We would actually come here with more joy to do this podcast because we know that to an extent we are providing a service in which we are getting paid for, right? But now we're just doing this for free. at this moment. But long term, hopefully, eventually, make sure to sign up to our Patreon. But that's you know, to the point. I think that I think to an extent it helps.
Yeah.
Right?
No, for sure it does.
Yeah. And but for the average person, first of all, the average person is not even creative. Or maybe they are and just never has really tapped into it. Right? How many people do you know that are writers?
Well, I was a education major with specification in literature, so I know a handful.
Okay,
but
like within your circle.
Oh, within my immediate circle, not a lot. No.
Or within like their immediate circle.
No, not a lot. No,
usually none.
Yeah,
right. No. But writing, to an extent, if you do it successfully, can bring in a lot of income.
Yeah, it could. Yeah,
you know, and it's just like I genuinely believe that people don't write because they're not being paid to write.
Okay.
Following me?
Yeah. No, I'm following. But I do still think that monetary gain from doing something you love doesn't always work out. Yeah. Especially when you're doing something as freelance, and I use that word very specifically because it's something as like dance. Like it's very subjective. Yeah. It's like me paying you to judge women for me or to choose women for me. It's like your taste might not be
I see what you're
mine, and my taste changes every day. Your taste changes every day. Mm-hmm. So it's ya deja eso. Déjalo así ya. No. Déjalo. For those listening and hopefully watching, Joel's fixing one of our cameras right now. Because like I said, we're a 2-man army. Let's see. Depending on the service and depending on the art form, it could monetary gain for it could. It's always very difficult to navigate. How did we even land on that?
We were talking about how people struggle with the idea of money and how it can become a dragon. Yeah. And the fact that you have the struggle of pursuing something that you love. And also being paid to do that thing that you love. Yeah. Right? Like you were mentioning the stories with the Vietnamese. Yeah.
It's a beauty pageant, yeah.
With the beauty pageant.
Yeah, I remember it didn't make us turn against each other because we still love each other till this day. But I remember like arguing with people that I've never argued before because of this deadline that this random person who's paying us to fulfill this service, if you will. Yeah. We need to meet for him. And like I said, depending on the service, I think that as positive as it could be, it also has the room for a lot of negative emotion.
One of the things that has happened with me in regards to providing services for the exchange of money has actually been the fact that for the past maybe 4 years, I have developed a distaste for humans.
Interesting.
Yeah. Even to this day, people contact me telling me that they want to buy a house, and I generally don't want to provide the service just because I just don't want to deal with people.
You just don't want to be that guy.
I just don't, and it's weird. Yeah. Because in the beginning, I was excited. Man, you couldn't talk. You want to see a house? Let's go 12 p.m., 12 a.m. It didn't matter what time you want to go see it. Let's do this. But now it's just like, man, is it even worth it? Yeah. Like, is it to an extent it is worth it, but would I rather be in my house? Yeah. Maybe with my daughter watching television or reading a book in my house than going out there and providing a service? Yeah. And that to me has really like shifted my perspective
well
on it.
you're changing, bro. There's nothing more
Yeah.
complex than the psyche of another human being,
Yeah,
bro.
that's true.
And what's interesting that you mentioned is that you're speaking, and forgive me if I'm overstepping, but you're speaking from a point of privilege now.
Correct.
If you right now would have went back and spoken to that other Joel, he would have been like, bro, fuck you, bro. I gotta feed.
Like,
gotta
what are
feed
you
myself.
doing?
Yeah,
What do you mean you don't want to go?
Yeah, get up and go.
Get up.
Make that bread.
Exactly.
Bro. So it's like now you've done that. You've put yourself in the position to really lock in and focus in on yourself. And I'm happy for you.
Yeah,
100%.
that's true.
Because it's a privilege to be able to even think that way.
It's a privilege to even say no.
Yeah, because there's some people who can't afford to say no.
Yeah.
And you got to just kind of shut up, muscle through it, and go. And I can't wait for the day I get there.
Yeah.
But no, but it's important to acknowledge. I know we find it funny, but you're speaking from a point of privilege right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it definitely, to an extent, yeah, it definitely is privilege. It's also, to a point, it's almost laziness, right? It's almost like, what's the word? I think it's called monotony. When you do something constantly for so long, that you just don't find the joy in it anymore.
Where's Jamie? We gotta.
Yeah, exactly. I'll figure out the word, but it's I think it's the repetition.
Yeah.
You know, like I think I am the type of person that likes to do new things. Right? I don't want to be stuck doing the same thing over and over and again. And I think that was one of my biggest mistakes is like creating a company, ironically, right? You know, Nvidia. Yeah. Obviously. He was in an interview where they asked him, hey, if you were to go back, your 30-year-old self, and you were to go with your best friends to Denny's and come up with the idea of Nvidia, would you do it again? And he said no. Dude, Nvidia is if I'm not mistaken, it's $1 trillion company. Yeah. And he said because of all the pain and all the suffering and all the embarrassment and that at the moment where they sat down and they thought about the idea of Nvidia, they did not realize that it would be 100x more difficult than what they ever could have imagined, right? Yeah. And to me, that's where I'm at with like everything that I have built now, where when I was younger, when you're young, everything seems like rainbows and sunshines. Like I thought that I could be an incredible entrepreneur, that I would do this, I would do that. I would sell my company for $500,000. Little did I know that it was going to be 100x more harder than I really expected. Yeah. Right. But to that extent, I can't sit here and say, you know, even though all of those things were so hard, and if I could go back, I would not do it. Right? Very interesting. But now that I have done it, my mentality is that much more bigger than it was when I was younger. Yeah. You know? But if I could go back, I'd be like, bro, that's something that you don't want to necessarily do, because it has been hard. Yeah. And I think everything takes toil, everything takes pain, everything takes hard work, you know? And when you think that something may be worth it, and you look at the end of the rainbow and it's actually not worth it, you're like, damn.
It sounds like you, like me in the sense, were crippled by the knowledge that you've been given, or that you've unlocked for yourself.
Crippled.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the complexity of the problem is discouraging you from wanting to do it. Yeah. Over again.
For sure.
I think that you have every right to feel that way. 100%.
But you know what's funny? I can only feel that way because I did it.
Right, because there's no better teacher than experience.
And
you wouldn't have come to that conclusion or come to these understandings if you didn't.
no, as a matter of fact, had I not done it, the other side of this current pain would have been regret. Where it's like, damn,
which one would you rather sit with?
This one, for sure.
My nigga.
For sure.
Shit, I shouldn't have said that.
For sure.
Yeah, we could edit that out.
I would rather sit here with all of the pain and suffering and all of the nights, man, the hard work, the days and nights where people were not looking, and I was just me by myself, actually sitting right over there by myself, writing leases, doing accounting, doing so many different things. And all the nights and toil that it took, and I sit here, I would rather do it again than sit with the regret of not doing it.
Yeah.
Right? But if I could go back
with the knowledge you have now.
With the knowledge that I have now, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. What would you have done?
That's a good question.
With this knowledge, back in 2017 Edgar's body. I mean, with this knowledge you have back in 2017 Joel Ruiz's body, what would you do?
Ironically, I mean it's tough because that Joel was a completely different beast.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that I would have told him to, honestly, I would have told him to just do it.
Yeah. What's interesting?
Yeah.
What's interesting? I wanted to hear what you would say to yourself, because I feel like one thing that a lot of people get lost in is in their accomplishments and their their failures. No, hear me out. So you can really get locked into a failure.
Yeah.
And that failure, your personality and your psyche can really just move forward based off of that failure. And I feel like people always have a hard time evolving after a really big failure or a really big accomplishment. They feel like they need to remain the same person for that amount of time. Whether if you fail, you unknowingly remain the same person that has failed for a little bit. And when you succeed, you unknowingly remain the same person that has succeeded, not knowing that your growth and your ability to adapt and change to certain situations has gotten you to the point of where you are.
Yeah.
And people think that, because I was this way when I succeeded, I need to continue being this way. And I know I am not there yet, so I really don't know, but I could see why it'll cause a lot of internal kind of like struggle, because before all I had to do was work 80 hours and then slay that, and now I work 80 hours and it's not working for me.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to point out that you're evolving either way, whether if you accomplish or whether if you fail.
One of the things that I have struggled with, and it's a mindset that I have been changing, is focusing on the journey and not necessarily the end goal or the end result. Because I genuinely I'm at a point in my life where I'm about to be 30, right? And when I was 25, I think I had like a midlife crisis, and I realized I was like, yo. Time is really ticking, right? Yeah. And I'm about to be 30 soon. And, now I have my family that has grown a +1. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
She's beautiful.
And by the grace and mercy of God. And now I'm realizing, hey, back to the data sets. That's where it kicks in.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's hey, the 21-year-old Joel only had an X amount of data sets. Yeah. Right? He was only working with X amount of knowledge.
And he wasn't ready for the 30-year-old Joel's data set.
Absolutely not.
He wasn't.
Right? And so now I'm looking back, and now I could see and I could analyze things completely different than I could have when I was younger. Right? And now I'm sitting back and it's all right, well, what do I want to do? Well, for example, right now I want to get into software engineering, right? And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, okay, what does that entail? that entails a lot of fucking hard work, bro.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
learning.
hard work. Like the learning curve is massive. How you go from sales to now basically programming, right?
Right.
And then what has helped me now that I'm in this stage of my life is realizing that it is actually the journey of becoming that is worth it. Not necessarily the fact that you are a software engineer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, for example, if you wanted abs, right?
I do want abs.
And me too.
Yeah.
If you wanted abs, it's better to fall in love with the journey of getting abs than it is falling in love with the idea of you getting abs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's better for you to fall in love with going to the gym and knowing, yo, I'm about to do X amount of miles.
Yeah, I think Naval says something along those lines. The person who loves walking would go 10 times farther than the person who just runs.
And it's because of
or something along those lines.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. And it's because of those ideas that I have really now developed the idea of just like, hey, now I need to just like fall in love with the journey, which is crazy.
Well, what I've noticed is that for me, it's been very productive for me to kind of just like identify those as different journeys. It's not one. I mean, there's obviously one long journey, right? Because you get one life. But I feel like that was Joel's journey as a salesman. Now we're gonna end that chapter, close that, turn the page, or put it in a new memory card, whatever the fuck whatever reference that applies most to you, and start a new one. And and I think that's 100% okay.
Yeah, I think so
life
too.
Life is not one long memory card,
and it's
bro.
not.
There's
and quoting Naval too, and I think he quoted somebody else on this. He says that specializations are for insects. Yeah. That humans are not really supposed to specialize in one thing. Yeah. We are complex. The psyche of a human, like you mentioned, is extremely complex, right? Yeah. Why can't I be an author? Why can't I be a podcaster? Why can't I be a programmer? Why can't I be a salesman? Why can't I be a father? Why can't I go to the moon, bro? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't I do that? Yeah. And all of those things are, to an extent, achievable.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah,
within reason.
And I think this goes back to the idea of why we really want to start this podcast and why we named it the way we named it. Yeah. Like the Academy of Men. And what is men overall? The human beings have just we are the peak of existence. Yeah. That's how I like to see it. Just because the apex. Just because A, we're conscious, and B, we're conscious. Yeah. That, like, just the mere fact that we can even question anything and rationalize and transfer data from one person to the next across generations, right? Yeah. If I write a book with a recipe and I give it to my daughter, and then my daughter gives it to her granddaughter, the information has now been transferred across generations without me necessarily being there. And the mere fact that we're here is because of that. Yeah. Because people prior to us took the time and effort to figure shit out, you know what I'm saying, and get us to this point. And I'm just overall completely grateful for all those humans that were before us. Yeah. Andrew Tate says that we owe it to our forefathers, that we owe it to our bloodline to be great. Yeah. Because there was a time that your grandfather, both of your grandfathers, were 17-year-old kids. Yeah. And they could have also ended it. Right. And thank God they didn't.
Right, because now I'm here now.
Because now you're here. So overall, I just think that the human experience is such a unique experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're here to really talk about it and actually discuss it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I'm at a point right now, bro, where I'm just here like everything just makes perfect sense. Like when you boil it down and you really just like think about it, everything makes perfect sense. Of course, you're a little insecure. You didn't have as much support growing up. Of course, you get mad easily. You never really learn how to manage your frustrations. Of course, people and I to myself and people in general just make perfect fucking sense when you're able to really just understand both their upbringing and how they
empathy.
Yeah, and it's allowed me to navigate much more so recently with this certain amount of grace that 17-year-old Edgar did not have, and I'm so grateful for it also.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, moving forward with this podcast, we're gonna have a little bit more specific topics that we're gonna be talking about, and I hope you guys got an idea of just kind of like our conversation, mine and Joel's conversations in general. We do bounce around a lot,
for sure.
But this is just me and him. This is how we navigate.
This is how we talk. This is how we analyze, dissect. This is how we think, really.
Yeah, and this was probably the most unstructured episode we're probably gonna have.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome guys to the Academy of Man podcast. We love you. We appreciate you for tuning in. And again, Joel, I'm grateful to be here. Do you want to add something?
Yeah. Overall, guys, this is a project that Edgar and I have started. This is something that we, with the help of God, we're going to continue, and that we hope that it does bring value to the general public overall. One day we hope to monetize it, but overall we want it to be a net positive to society.
Yeah,
all right?
For sure. We just got to find our people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.